If you imagine a shadowy figure parkouring their way over a rooftop with a golden idol stuck under their arm, or a masked assassin slipping poison into a drink, or even a disguised spy lifting critical information from a general's desk, then you're probably thinking of a rogue.
This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Good luck.
Han Solo, Selena Kyle, Ethan Hunt, even Indiana Jones, all classic examples of rogues in their genres. Interesting. Harrison Ford played 2 of those. Rogues in D&D 5e, and in D&D in general, are known for being highly skilled, lightly armed and armored, while still being able to pump out a good amount of damage under the right circumstances, with their signature sneak attack. To further diversify what type of rogue you're playing, at 3rd level we choose our roguish archetype, the rogue subclass. There are 9 to choose from, but which to choose? What's going to have us swimming in ill-gotten booty, and which is going to give us a date with the state? Just remember, these are my opinions. I think any subclass can find a home at the right table in the right campaign. For rogues to truly excel at their chosen field of skullduggery, they'll need just a touch of magic. The Arcane Trickster is my favorite subclass for the rogue in 5e, and I think the most powerful. These used to be a prestige class in earlier editions that consisted of a wizard-rogue multiclass. The simplest reason to explain why the Arcane Trickster is the best of the rogues is that, well, rogues are cheaters. They want to cheat at cards. They want to cheat in combat. They want to cheat in bed.
What?
And the best way to cheat, at least in 5th edition, is to use magic. But rogues can't use magic, except for this rogue. At 3rd level, you get spell casting, which is, of course, the biggest part of this class. You only get up to 4th level spells and count as a 1/3 caster for the purposes of multiclassing. Intelligence is your casting stat, and you pull your spells from the wizard's spell list. You get 3 cantrips to start with, though one of them must be Mage Hand. Some of our other abilities are going to interact with that. We also learn 3 1st level spells, and this is where things get interesting. One of those spells can come from any school of magic, but the other 2 are different. They have to come from the schools of enchantment and illusion, with the exceptions at levels 8, 14, and 20, which, just like the one at level 3, can come from any school of magic. I kind of like this. Yes, it's limiting, but sometimes the limits inspire creativity. Illusion and enchantments are really on brand for a rogue and have plenty of good options. This is more of a problem with the Arcane Trickster's sister subclass, the Fighter, the Eldritch Knight. They choose spells from the Abjuration and Evocation schools, and for their 2nd level options for the Abjuration, you only have like Arcane Lock. Not great. But Arcane Tricksters, they've got it better. Disguise Self and Silvery Barbs, Whole Person and Invisibility, Hypnotic Pattern, Major Image, Charm Monster, and Greater Invisibility. All great choices and more. Sure, they only get up to 4th level spells at level 19, but spells are very good at solving problems, and rogues are excellent problem solvers. Also at 3rd level, we get Mage Hand Legerdemain. Our Mage Hand cantrip is augmented in several ways. It's invisible now, and controlling it is now part of our cunning action. Still an action to cast, but now a bonus action to control. There are 3 new things that we can do with the Mage Hand. First, we can stow an object in a container worn or carried by another creature. So we can slip a bit of blackmail material in the pockets of the right person. Second, we can retrieve an object in a container worn or carried by another creature. So, we can take that blackmail material from the wrong person. And third, the Mage Hand can use these tools to pick locks and disable traps. And since Mage Hand has a range of 30 feet, we can do those things at a distance without risk of blowing ourselves up when we inevitably fail a check. We can also do one of these tasks without being observed with a sleight of hand check. So yes, you can pick people's pockets unobserved from 30 feet away. Mage Hand is already a pretty wacky cantrip on the shenanigans scale already. But this just takes it up to the next level. At 9th level, we get Magical Ambush. If we are hidden from a creature when we cast a spell on them, it has disadvantage on its saving throw for that turn. This works particularly well for any mind control spells like Charm Person, Suggestion. Even better for whole person. Rogues, with all their sneak attack dice, love criticals that this spell can provide. 13th level gives Versatile Trickster. We can designate an enemy within 5 feet of our mage hand with a bonus action. For the rest of the turn, we have advantage on attacks against them, potentially helping us land blows, higher chances of critical hits, and helping us get sneak attack even if we don't meet the usual requirements. Interestingly enough, this doesn't say till the end of our turn, but the turn. This means that if the target tried to run away from us, we could potentially still get a sneak attack with our attack of opportunity. There is the optional rogue feature, Steady Aim, that does something similar to Versatile Trickster, but it has some restrictions, chief among them being that we can't have moved and we can't move afterwards when we use it. Versatile Trickster isn't so encumbered. At 15th level is Spell Thief. When we are targeted by a spell or are in its area effect, we can spend our reaction to force that caster to make a saving throw with this spellcasting stat. If it fails, then we are unaffected by the spell and we steal that spell from the caster. For the next 8 hours, we know that spell, and the caster does not. So, no sir, you cannot continue to fireball me and my friends. This is probably the weakest ability that you get, which isn't such a big deal. It's the last one we get, and it's the most unlikely one we'll see. You only have access to 3rd level spells at this point, 4th level and 2 more levels, so you can't steal anything particularly high level, but it doesn't have to be a wizard spell. It can be any spell. And I don't see any reason that we couldn't steal an ally spell for our own use if the circumstances call for it. Arcane Tricksters. Tricky little rogues. But that's how you want a rogue. Be tricky. It's not the most combat-oriented rogue, but I think that's where some people go wrong with rogues, by trying to force them to be more combative than they are. Sneak attack is just there to even the playing field. Solving problems, infiltration, espionage, sabotage, scouting, and spying. These are the things that rogues excel at. And by having a little magic available, just makes them that much better. But do you know what isn't better? The worst subclass for the rogue.
Well, there isn't any time to waste then, is there?
The Inquisitive is a reverse play on the rogue. Whereas most rogues are assassinating and stealing everything, Inquisitives use their roguish abilities to counter their roguish brethren. They're basically investigators, so much so that I actually misremembered this subclass being called the Investigator. You basically get to play as Sherlock Holmes, one of my most favorite characters in all of literature. But how well does it fulfill that fantasy? At 3rd level, Ear for Deceit for an insight check to spot lying and roll a natural 7 or lower is treated as an 8, similar to the core class's 11th level ability reliable talent. How useful is this? Well, if you're proficient in insight and have, I don't know, generously say a 12 wisdom, this would be an 11 that you rolled, which would just barely beat out a DC 10, which is considered easy. Probably won't be consistently useful. It's very specific. It's only to spot lying, not someone's intentions or their mood. Also at 3rd level, we get Eye of Detail, which lets us, as a bonus action, to either make a perception check to spot hidden creatures or objects, or make an investigation check to uncover or decipher clues. Again, very specific. It doesn't buff these skills outright, but only under certain circumstances. And depending on how games are played at your table, could be utterly useless. Using this skill does technically take an action, I think. But in my experience, the DM just calls for these checks when necessary, or when the player describes them doing something. The action required is usually irrelevant. One place it might be useful is when deciphering clues is when you were stuck in like a time-sensitive trap, like if the walls were closing in on you and you were short on time to figure out how to get out. Then the action might matter, but not often, I don't think. Finally, we get Insightful Fighting as a bonus action. We can make an insight check versus our enemy's deception check. Should we succeed for the next minute, or until we use this ability again, we can make sneak attacks against the enemy even if we don't make the normal sneak attack requirements, as long as we don't have disadvantage. Okay, this ability is not too bad. More ways to sneak attack is always useful. And even if the first check fails, well, you can just use another bonus action on the next turn. Do it again. And it really does remind me of this.
First, distract target. Then block his blind jab. Counter with cross to left cheek.
Also, 3 abilities at the beginning sounds pretty good, but most of them are pretty niche. 9th level gives Steady Eye, which lets us, as long as we're not moving more than half speed, get advantage on perception and investigation checks. Kind of seeing the trend of this class, buffing certain skills, mostly kind of investigator type skills, under certain circumstances. Which is on brand for the subclass, but does require some forethought in which skills you should probably take at character creation and try to make sure like your wisdom and intelligence aren't terrible. Definitely not beginner friendly. At 13th level, we get Unerring Eye. As an action, as long as we're not blinded or deafened, we can sense illusions, other magics, or shape changers not in their real form within 30 feet of us. We can do this a number of times per day equal to our wisdom modifier. So maybe twice, maybe. Also, we get information-wise out of this that something's trying to trick us. Not what it is or where it is. The issue I have with this is that it takes an action to use. It doesn't happen automatically. This means to know that something is trying to trick us, we have to know, or at least guess, that something's trying to trick us. Bit of a problem there. I can see a scenario where we're hunting a doppelganger in a town or something and go to the local watering hole because everyone's there, and using this ability to know that, yes, there is a shapeshifter among them, and you can use more of our insightful skills to figure out which one they are. Could be a good story, but not particularly good ability. At 17th level, we finally get Eye of Weakness. Really going with the whole eye and ear metaphor, aren't we? When we use our 3rd level Insightful Fighting ability successfully, our sneak attack increases by 3d6. So it's just a straight buff. Not bad, but maybe a little late to matter. This is, after all, 17th level. I really want to like this subclass. I love the idea of an investigator. Inquisitive. I like the idea of taking the rogue class and kind of turning it on its head, reversing the typical role. But I think the abilities are just a little too niche, too limited. Maybe if they gave proficiency or extra expertise in the related skills like investigation and insight, maybe not tied to some of their uses to an ability score that be very hard to justify buffing like wisdom, maybe more doable. But what do you think? What is your choice for the best and worst subclasses for the rogue in D&D 5e? Do you like the Arcane Trickster, or you might have gone with something with an old staple of the Assassin? What do you think of the Inquisitive? Trash? Or does something like the Thief underwhelm you? Tell me in the comments below. While you're down there, be sure to subscribe, ring the bell, smash that like button, check out our other videos over here, and I'll see you in the parlor.